Muses, I hope everyone is safe and warm in these chaotic storms. It is absolutely a mess down here in Louisiana. I am thinking of everyone across this frozen country. Before I check on Amy, I want to give a couple of shout outs today. My kiddo is turning 23 today, and my bonus kiddo just turned 9 on Sunday. So happy birthday to both of them. Amy, are you surviving up there?
I'm starting to get a little stir crazy because I have stuff I should be doing and I keep squirreling out and getting like nothing done, but I did take care of a couple of little doom drawers.
Well, that's something. I was like, we're still frozen in mostly, but the sun is out today, so some of it's melting off. All right, I am going to jump right in again. This is going to be a longer one as it is the final segment, and I have a lot of info to dive into. I do have more little personal stories for some of these this time than I have in the other ones. So since this is the last one, I'm going to be starting out in the year 1692 with the Fairfield Panic. And I'm starting off with one that has a story. So in 1692, Mercy Disborough of Fairfield, Connecticut, she was pardoned. She was sentenced to death, but reprieved when the hysteria died down. So here's some more on Mercy. One of the most documented witchcraft trials in Connecticut's history. It took place in Fairfield at the same time as the infamous Salem witch trials in Massachusetts, but followed a very different legal trajectory. So the case began in early 1692 when Catherine Branch, a 17-year-old servant in the Westcott household in Stamford, began suffering from unexplained fits or convulsions and hallucinations. She claimed to be tormented by invisible forces and eventually named several women as her attackers, including Mercy of Campo, now part of Westport, and Elizabeth Clausen of Stamford. Over 200 depositions were taken from neighbors. Many accused Mercy of maleficium, or harmful magic, claiming she had caused livestock to die or afflicted people after personal disputes. One witness, John Barlow, testified that Mercy had appeared in his room at night and pinched his feet.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
That's disturbing. I don't like that at all. I need details. Did she pinch the bottom of the feet, the top of the feet? Where was it? Was she playing this little piggy with the market?
That's what I was thinking. When I first read this and decided to do an actual story, that was part of the reasoning, because I was like, she what now? Because that was my visual. Like, she crept into his room and like started doing his piggies. Like, what? I don't pinched his feet.
I don't like it.
Me either. So on September 15th, 1692, Mercy and Elizabeth Clausen were subjected to the ordeal by water at Edwards Pond in Fairfield. Their hands and feet were bound and they were thrown into the water. According to witnesses, both women swam like a cork floating to the surface. Because water is considered a pure element, it is believed that it would reject a witch, making floating a sign of guilt. Mercy was also subjected to a naked search by a jury of women looking for witch marks or devil's teats, which, as we know, were believed to be physical signs of a pact with Satan. The trial was presided over by Governor Robert Treat and a special court. The jury initially could not reach a unanimous decision. After further deliberation and pressure, the jury returned on October 28th, 1692, with a guilty verdict for Mercy, while Elizabeth was acquitted. Mercy was sentenced to death by hanging, making her the only person convicted during the 1692 Connecticut outbreak. Mercy was never executed, though. Her supporters and legal counsel filed a petition to the legal court in Hartford, arguing that the trial was illegal because one of the jurors had been changed during the proceedings. In May 1693, the General Assembly granted her a reprieve, and she was eventually acquitted and released after a year of imprisonment. Records indicate that she returned to her life in Fairfield. Probate records from 1709 show her as the survivor of her husband, Thomas Disbrow, and she was believed to have died around 1711. Elizabeth Clawson, her story. A petition signed by 76 neighbors attested to her good character. More on her case aside from being tied to Marcy's case. While the trial of Elizabeth Clawson was tied to the same 1692 events as Mercy, her outcome was notably different. Unlike Mercy, who was initially convicted and sentenced to death, Elizabeth was acquitted, found not guilty by the jury on October 28, 1692. Upon her acquittal, the court granted her jail delivery, meaning that she was legally discharged from custody. Several specific elements contributed to her being found not guilty despite failing the same exact water test as Mercy, and those were: Clawson had a significant amount of support from her neighbors in Stamford. A large group of residents, approximately 76 people, signed an affidavit attesting to her good nature and godly behavior. This collective defense was unusual for the time and helped counter the accusations of maleficium. And also, the court consulted with several Puritan ministers who expressed skepticism regarding the evidence. They specifically condemned the swimming test as unlawful and sinful and argued that physical witch marks should only be verified by qualified physicians. While Catherine Branch, the primary accuser, claimed Clawson afflicted her, the ministers and some jurors felt there was a lack of clear proof regarding Elizabeth's actual dealings with the grand enemy of God, or the devil. Following her release, Elizabeth returned to her home and family in Stamford. She lived for more than 2 decades after the trial, and she died on May 10th, 1714, at the age of 83. She remained with her husband, Stephen Clawson, and her children. Records from 1714 refer to her as a widow at the time of her death. So she did get to live a full life. She did still have to sit in jail and go through the water test. So you can tell that we're closer to the end of these things.
Yes.
Because the courts and the church are both starting to kind of be like, eh. So we're going to have less executions in this round, which is nice. Also in 1692, there is Mary Staples of Fairfield. She was acquitted. And then on to 1693, we have Hugh Crocia from Stratford, Connecticut. He was acquitted, but I do have some of his story. This is kind of wild. He claimed to be a wizard, but the court ignored his confession as delusional. But here are some more on him. The case of Hugh Crocia is a notable and somewhat unusual chapter in the history of the Connecticut witch trials. In 1693, Crocia, a resident of Stratford, was accused of witchcraft during a period of high tension following the Salem witch trials in neighboring Massachusetts. The case began in late 1692 when a young girl in Stratford complained that Crocia was afflicting her, always afflicting her.
What does it even mean?
I don't know.
You're afflicting me.
And it doesn't even tell either. Like,
afflicting you with what? Trying to make you have some sense? I don't know.
Anyway, he was intercepted on a road in Fairfield by 2 men from Norwalk who brought him before the local authorities, and the formal indictment against him stated that he had, quote, forsaken thy God and covenanted with the devil, end quote. Also in there was in a, quote, preternatural way, afflicting the bodies of sundry of his majesty's good subjects, end quote. Whatever the hell any of that means.
Yeah. What now?
Right.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. What makes Crocia's case unique is that he confessed to the charges. Unlike many accused individuals who maintain their innocence, Crocia claimed he had indeed made a pact with the devil and practiced black magic. Despite his confession, the legal standards for witchcraft in Connecticut had shifted. By 1693, the courts were becoming more skeptical of spectral evidence and unsolicited confessions. So I guess because they didn't force this out of him, it mustn't be true. I don't know. I mean,
that makes sense.
We didn't get to torture this guy, so there ain't no way.
Nope.
No way. The grand jury found no bill, which is insufficient evidence to proceed, or in some accounts, the court formally declared him as ignoramus, a legal term at the time meaning the evidence was too weak or the person was deemed a simpleton or ignorant of what they were saying. So he was acquitted of the capital crime, but was not released unconditionally. He was ordered to pay the master of the gaol for his jail fees, the cost of his arrest, and the expenses of his trial before he could be set free. Croce's case is often cited by historians to show that Connecticut's legal system was moving toward a higher burden of proof than Salem's was. Even with the direct confession of a pact with the devil, the court refused to convict him, signaling an end to the witchcraft delusion in the colony. In May 2023, the Connecticut General Assembly passed a resolution, or House Joint Resolution number 34, that officially exonerated those accused and convicted of witchcraft during the colonial era. Hugh Croce was among these specifically named in the effort to restore the reputations of those affected by the trials. So that is our first little section. Like I said, there's such a big shift from the last episodes. That middle portion is when they were really just going at it with just execute them. Doesn't matter. Execute them, dogs. Right. We had it all in that one.
Yeah. They're wild.
So literally in a matter of, let's see, we ended the last one in 1691, and in 1692 is when it started calming down. So in a matter of a year, it went from kill everything that you could possibly think of.
And there wasn't, do you know what made the shift? I mean, just
not
people
specifically.
Like, this is crap.
Basically, yeah. I mean, and to me, it honestly kind of sounds like a competition, sort of. Like, our courts are better than Salem's, so, you know, we're going to actually look at evidence and believe that rather than just this guy that says he's a wizard, because
right,
for real. But to me, it kind of sounded like that's where they were going. Like, they wanted to be like, look at us making sense shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I mean, that was kind of the catalyst for when they really started paying attention and not getting everybody. So there are a lot more in this episode that were not actually executed.
They read that Malleus Maleficarum and was like, this guy's full of crap.
Yeah, we'll put him at the king of that also.
Yes, I was literally about to say that. He's the king.
Yeah, he's the king of a lot of things that no one wants to be the king of, but whatever. All right, so now we're going to go into post-Salem, which is from 1697 to 1878. So this is a big one, yeah. So 1697, we have Winifred Benham in Willingford, Connecticut. She was acquitted. She and her daughter were the last people tried for witchcraft in New England. 1706, Grace Sherwood of Princess Anne, Virginia. She was imprisoned. She was the Witch of Pungo. She was, quote, ducked or trial by water and imprisoned for 7 years, but she was not executed. They still to this day have markers and things. In 1712, we have Virtue Viol from Talbot County, Maryland, acquitted. The jury found her not guilty despite the fear of her neighbors. So next we have 1730. Her name was Mary. There is no last name listed. She was from Virginia, and she was convicted and sentenced to 39 lashes for doing sorcery to find lost treasure.
What now?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. What is wrong with? I hate people. This is why.
Sorcery to find lost treasure. Well, listen, it's lost treasure.
It's lost. How
let a woman do what she got to do to find that shit. If you'll notice these jumps, we've got some jumps. So we went from 1697 to 1706, from 1706 to 1712, and then from 1712 to 1730. And now we are jumping to 1787. Unknown woman in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Mob violence. An elderly woman was attacked by a mob. Though not a formal trial, it showed lingering superstition. So now we've jumped forward and we're not just killing people, but this one literally tells you nothing. Apparently, a mob attacked an old woman that was suspicious.
A mob attacked an old woman.
Right.
Because they
An
decided
unknown woman in Philadelphia. Yes.
that she was
suspicious.
That's
not even the same. Yeah. Oh my God, an old lady. Get her. I don't. Okay.
That's mob mentality right there.
And maybe because everything was kind of slowing down at that point, maybe you had like your little group of people that were still like, no. So they just said, that old lady looks suspicious. It's wild.
I just work here.
What do we know? So from 1787, we jump to 1815 with Jane Caniff in Rockland County, New York. Her case was dismissed. And I do have some more on Jane. A trial held by neighbors in a mill. She was tested by weighing her against the Bible. She outweighed it, so she was freed. So this wasn't even a trial in a court with, court people or anything. This was her neighbors, and she weighed more than a Bible, obviously. So
was it like one of them family Bibles, them thick suckers that has all the family information?
How much
pictures?
Family was in that, though? Like,
do they think that the bones of witches are hollow?
Maybe. She outweighed the Bible, so she was freed. So let's hear more about it. The case of Jane Caniff in 1815 to 1816 is widely cited as the last witch trial in New York State, although it wasn't a trial at all. It took place in the hamlet of Clarksville, which is now West Nyack in Rockland County. While historical records for the case are thin, largely appearing in the 1886 History of Rockland County by Frank Green, the story has become a legendary part of local folklore. Jane was an outsider in a tight-knit community of Dutch farmers. Several factors made her a target for suspicion, and here they are. She was a widow of a Scottish physician and a single mother to a son named Tobias Lowry. Unlike her plainly dressed neighbors, she wore brightly colored clothing and styled her hair in, quote, queer or unconventional ways. Having learned medicine from her late husband, she practiced herbal healing. In a time of superstition, her effective tinctures were often viewed as magic rather than science. Also, she lived with a black cat and a talking parrot, which locals interpreted as familiars.
I can sort of see a talking parrot if they'd never experienced one before.
Right.
But God forbid a bitch be able to have her hair in a lovely coif and wear some nice fabrics.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah. So there was no single crime. At all, really. Instead, she was just blamed for a series of local misfortunes. Housewives claimed that they couldn't churn butter and found horseshoe or hoof marks at the bottom of their churns.
Oh, they probably pounded the churn stick and it dented.
A local farmer's cow stopped giving milk after it was found mysteriously standing in a cart one morning. Okay.
How'd it get in there?
I don't know.
That was some kids. That was local pranksters.
Probably. They didn't cow tip. They put them in carts. I don't know. Or maybe it was like, you know what? This is stupid. I'm out of here.
Maybe something scared it and it jumped up in.
I mean, there's really any number of... That woman didn't put it there.
Probably not. I don't reckon she could lift it.
I don't think so. She was generally antisocial and cantankerous, which fueled gossip that she was brewing trouble. 90% of the population of this country is antisocial.
This is our kindred spirit.
Because official judges in 1815 were unlikely to hear a witchcraft case, the, quote, trial was a form of community-sanctioned vigilante justice. The townspeople initially considered dunking her or throwing her into a pond to see if she floated, but they eventually settled on the trial of the scale. It was believed that a witch would weigh less than the word of God. Jane was taken to the Palemus grist mill in West Nyack. She was placed on one side of a massive flour scale, and a heavy brass-bound Dutch family Bible was placed on the other side.
Oh, it's It's brass bound. Brass doesn't weigh well. I mean, if it's...
Either way, a brass-bound book versus a grown-ass woman. Still,
I am certainly going to weigh more than that. I'm a big girl.
And I'm not, but...
You're a compact girl.
Right. I like that. Compact.
Did you like? I didn't just call you short.
Right. Compact. I like it. But yes, there's that. Anyway, so according to legend, Jane easily outweighs the Bible, obviously. When the scales were released, the Bible flew upward to the rafters, and Jane was declared innocent. Today, Jane is remembered as the Witch of West Nyack. There is a historical marker in West Nyack near the site of the old mill, near the intersection of Germans Road and Route 59, commemorating the event as New York's final witch trial. While she survived her trial, legend says she remained an outcast. She is believed to be buried in the Clarkstown Reformed Church Cemetery on Germans Road, though no headstone remains, which is sad. All right, so this is just a bonus story. It involves Salem, so I wasn't going to cover any Salem, but again, this is kind of just a bonus because this is where it ended, basically. So in 1878, Lucretia Brown of Salem, Massachusetts, her case was dismissed. It was the second Salem witch trial, is what it's considered. A Christian Scientist sued a former member for mesmerism, and the judge threw the case out. It became known as the second Salem witch trial or the Ipswich witchcraft trial. It is widely considered the last witchcraft trial in the United States. The case involved two followers of the fledgling Christian Science religion. Lucretia Brown, a 50-year-old resident of Ipswich, who had been disabled since a childhood spinal injury. She believed Christian Science had healed her, but suffered a relapse in 1877 to 1878, somewhere in there. Daniel Spofford, a former associate of Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, who had been expelled from the movement following a disagreement. Lucretia Brown filed a lawsuit claiming that Spofford was a mesmerist who used the power of his mind to control and injure others. Specifically, she alleged that Spofford used mesmeric mental powers, a concept Mary Baker Eddy called malicious animal magnetism, to cause her, quote, great physical and mental suffering, severe spinal pains, and neuralgia.
I'm
quote,
sorry.
was it the malicious animal magnetism?
Yeah, that's
that one.
The one.
That's the one. Yeah. That's right. A, quote, temporary suspension of the mind, quote. She petitioned the court for an injunction to prevent Spofford from exercising his mental control over her. A trial opened on May 14th, 1878 at the Supreme Judicial Court in Salem, presided over by Judge Horace Gray. The trial attracted national attention because it was being held in the same city as the infamous 1692 trials. Mary Baker Eddy and 21 other witnesses traveled to Salem to testify against Spofford. On May 17, 1878, Judge Gray dismissed the case. He ruled that the claim was too vague and that the court had no legal jurisdiction or practical way to prevent, quote, mental influences or spiritual harms. Though the case was dismissed, it highlighted a persistent belief in unforeseen forces. Interestingly, shortly after the trial, Spofford was the target of a bizarre alleged conspiracy where Eddy's husband, Asa, and others were accused of plotting to kidnap and kill Spofford because they believed he was, quote, mentally assassinating them. Yeah, so that concludes my non-Salem Trials series. I hope that you gained some perspective on those that weren't what some would say glorified, as a lot of those in Salem were. I want to touch on Salem as well at some point, but these are the ones that often aren't discussed, and that makes me sad. And it was pretty incredible what some of these people went through, whether or not they were guilty of anything. Most of them were not. So, being the end of the U.S. locations of the witch trials, I want to take a second to remember all of the women, men, children, and animals and the lives that they lost, whether it was via execution or just disrupting their life in any way. The tragic end that they met, regardless of if they got to live out their lives or not, helped shape the world that we live in today, and they should be respected for that. So I raise my water jug to each and every one of them. So cheers to all of those folks who went through it, so that thankfully we now do not have to. And that is it. That is all. All right. Well, the floor is all yours, ma'am.
I am not a Debbie Downer today. Well, I mean, I might be, because I'm going to dispel a bunch of stuff. But of course, who knows if it's actually true, right?
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Have you heard of Helltown, Ohio?
I have heard of Helltown, but I have not heard anything specific about Helltown.
Good, because I'm going to tell you about it.
And I'm excited because, again, this is the second week in a row that I have no idea anything about it. So let's do it.
Yay! Okay. Originally called Boston or Boston Mills, Helltown, Ohio is a former mill village located in Summit County, Ohio. It is now part of the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. I want to give a brief history of the village/town. In 1805, it was first surveyed by Alfred Wolcott and James Stanford. In 1806, the settlement was founded as Range 11, Town 4 of the Connecticut Western Reserve, one of the earliest communities in what is now known as Summit County. The first structure was a cabin at the site of the future Boston Cemetery. January 15th, 1811 is when it was recognized in an official capacity, becoming Boston Township. The name, of course, was inspired by Boston, Massachusetts, as most of the settlers in the area were from the New England area. And just a sidebar, can you name all of the states that make up New England?
Not all of them, but I can do Massachusetts, Connecticut. My brain just stopped. Rhode Island, New Hampshire.
Yes.
Maine.
Yes.
Vermont.
Yes. Yep. You did.
Wow.
I always
really
want to. Yeah. I always
see Maine and Vermont are my two that I always forget.
I try to throw in New York.
I almost said New York.
It's because of the new.
Yeah.
I always thought it was part of that. But to be fair, it just kind of borders right there, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's right there, too.
Yes.
Either way.
In the 1820s, that's when the area had their first mills and the start of their early industry. Water-powered mills along the Cuyahoga River anchored the village's economy, and it was these mills that gave the area the nickname Boston Mills. By the late 1800s, the village had expanded with railroad access, which was great because it was an isolated area. And by the mid-1900s, the town's industry had diminished and properties began showing neglect. 1974 or thereabouts with eminent domain, and if you don't know what that is the power of the government to take private property and convert it into public use. It's actually provided for in the Fifth Amendment. They can only exercise the power of eminent domain if they provide just compensation to the property owners. So the area was acquired by eminent domain to create/expand the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area National Park. This time, many residents were relocated or sold their property to the government, leaving the area vacant. Now, over the following decades, the restricted access led to curious folks, some who wanted to explore the empty town and others who wanted to vandalize it. These explorers and vandals soon began to tell some stories. So I'm going to give you some of the legends of the area. One of the most popular legends is the school bus story. An abandoned school bus sits on a back road, and it's claimed that the entire busload of children was murdered by a serial killer, a satanic cult, or a deranged bus driver. Just depends on who's telling the story. People in places they should not be claim to have seen the bus door slam shut, handprints appear on the windows, the ghostly children sitting in their seats awaiting their fate, and a shadowy figure sitting in the driver's seat. I personally feel like somebody watched Nightmare on Elm Street 2 one too many times and then saw that abandoned bus. Local historians and investigations claim that the bus was temporarily used as housing by a man whose house was being renovated. I also read that the bus was visible from the road but was fenced off. So that would probably make it a little more creepy, like who fences off a bus. One of the roads, Stanford Road, is known locally as the End of the World Road. This is because the pavement ended at a sudden steep drop-off at the edge of a sharp hill. So driving along in the dark and coming to that spot, it looked like the road just vanished. He was removed by the government. Folklore also claims the forests around Helltown are home to mutant animals and that the National Park Service closed the roads to the area to hide the evidence of the creatures. These creatures include giant deformed snakes, albino deer with glowing eyes, and I bet they glowed red, as an albino would have red eyes. Oversized, aggressive animals that lurk near the old houses. It didn't say specifically what type of animals. In my head, I saw dogs. And of course, mutant creatures supposedly created by chemical spills or government experiments. The 1980s to 2000s were high times for such stories. Now, here's the thing. There is some actual truth to this, albeit a kernel, a very small kernel. The Krutchke dump north of Boston Mills, aka Helltown, was used for decades as an industrial waste disposal site. And when the National Park Service acquired the land in the 70s, they discovered toxic chemicals, contaminated soil and water, and barrels of hazardous waste. The EPA got involved and the area was cleaned up, but it took years. Now, as far as the other animals, they may have seemed like mutants to the untrained eye, because albino or lucidic deer are real and occasionally spotted in Ohio. Large black snakes, like rat snakes, can reach impressive lengths. I know a lot of people, if you've got one in your barn, you just leave that black snake in there because it's keeping the rats and mice out, along with your barn cats. Coyotes and foxes with mange can look hairless and mutated. And deer with chronic wasting disease may behave strangely. So
Yeah.
you can see why.
Yeah, I kind of wonder a lot of times if that's what the case is with a lot of these cryptids that people know. Yeah. I mean, it's very plausible.
Cult activities and Satan worship have also become part of the legends of Helltown. Over the decades, stories were told of a secret satanic cult performing rituals in the woods. They told of ritual sites being hidden along the closed roads and being chased from the roads by the cultists, and bonfires deep in the woods, and animal sacrifices, and chanting heard in the woods. Complete silence from the animals when you enter their territory. That is the creepiest thing ever. Sentinels watching from the windows of an abandoned church or just inside the tree lines. Some even claim that the government evacuated the town in the 70s to cover up the cult activity. Now, these stories exploded in the 80s and 90s thanks to the satanic panic sweeping the U.S. at the time. Yeah, it was a wild time. Everything. We were all going to be sacrificed to Satan.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of eerie things in the abandoned town could have sparked these rumors. There's an old church, and its architecture includes Gothic-style window frames that some people misinterpreted as inverted crosses. They're not. They're just the decorative mullions. If you know what I'm talking about, those really do look like an inverted cross. So I can see where that information would have came from. There were pictures of the church online. And I mean, that's kind of a poor choice of decoration for a church.
It really is. Because of that is exactly what it looks like. Most people aren't really going to separate the two because, Right. So that one's under.
I mean, the way it comes, right. It comes down in the center part, and then it has that kind of the decorative piece there at the bottom, and then the two arms. So it makes like two triangles.
Yeah.
That was like on the eaves that I saw them.
Okay. Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
Those I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, not a good choice.
No, not really.
That they would think that through. But
yeah. I mean, they weren't having a satanic panic back then, apparently.
Right.
Teens.
Yeah. Who knew?
And of course, just an abandoned town with no trespassing signs and fully intact buildings and homes. It's going to be creepy. You stumble on a place like that, and it's supposed to be busy with the hustle and bustle of noise of everyday life, and there's just nothing. And your minds play tricks on you. So, being a popular hangout spot, groups of trespassers would gather there, and what gathering among friends isn't complete without a little bonfire pit. So that's likely where the stories of the ritualistic bonfires came from, and probably from people who weren't invited to the bonfire. Right. And the vandalism and littering does not help.
Yeah.
If you're out in the woods somewhere and you ain't supposed to be there, you need to leave it like you found it, or you need to leave it better than you found it. I know here some of our trails have gotten blocked off because people just don't respect the area that they're in. And some of them are even blocked off illegally. They just block off roads because they lead to their property, but it's actually a state or a county road. They can't do that. And it's because people aren't respectful. I mean, we have people going out and doing donuts in people's hay fields, and you just can't do that. And take your trash with you, for God's sake. Don't just go flinging it wherever it lands. Just take it with you. If you brought it in, take it out.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
It's really not. Sorry, that was just a little rant that I had as I was typing this up.
I make that rant all the time, just being out in public. Stop
It's really not.
out your windows, too. Burns me up.
So they have the legend of Crybaby Bridge as well. Now, Ohio actually has many Crybaby Bridge legends, and Helltown, of course, is not without one. There is, however, no historic record that exists relating to the bridge and the tragedy or crime that I'm about to tell you about. So the legend says that a woman in white threw her newborn baby from the bridge. Now, visitors claim they hear crying and see apparitions or feel a presence. Some claim the mother still haunts the area searching for the child. Ma'am, why are you looking for a child that you just chucked into the river?
That's what I was just thinking.
I don't know what she thought was going to happen. So that's confusing. But there's always a lady in white too. So was it really her baby? Well, now that we're back from our latest bout of gremlins shutting off in the middle of me trying to tell my story, but if you're interested, the closest well-known Crybaby Bridge to Helltown is the one in Doylestown, Ohio on Rogues Holler. It's spelled Hollow, and I don't know if y'all pronounce it hollow or holler. The only hollow is Sleepy Hollow. You guys say holler. Rogues Holler. Anyway, the address for that bridge is 17500 Gale House Road. It's about 25 miles southwest of Helltown. Today, the area formerly known as Helltown looks a lot different. Instead of the ghost town, it's a forested parkland. The roads now lead through dense woods, meadows, and restored natural areas instead of abandoned houses. Most of the houses were demolished. Visitors can also enjoy hiking trails and scenic spots, river overlooks. There's also access to the Towpath Trail, if you're familiar with that at all. It appeared to be pretty long and not something I'm going to be walking along. You can view wildlife of the non-supernatural or mutant variety. There are picnic areas and visitor facilities. The Park Service did preserve and restore some of the structures. The general store is still standing, and it is delightful to look at. It's still a functioning store, just on a different level. I was reading reviews. Apparently, they sell Mitchell's homemade ice cream, which was raved about. I've never heard of it, I don't think. They sell it in little cups. They're not like they're scooping it out, but it looked like there was like a case and you went and got your little flavor out. Of course, I like food. All food looks delish. There's other foods there as well, and souvenirs and park merch. And it looks like it supports a lot of the local small businesses selling their products. I saw what looked like some honey and maybe some candles, soaps, and kinds of things like that.
I love those little places like that.
I do too. I want to go so bad.
Where they sell local little stuff. That's the best.
Other structures include the Township Hall, a handful of the 19th century homes. One of the buildings was restored and turned into the Boston Mill Visitor Center. Remnants of the mill and other industrial foundations still exist. They're stabilized ruins and not full buildings, which is unfortunate. The MD Garage still stands. That would have been the local gas station as well. And I feel like if I rolled up to the pumps, Gomer or Goober Pyle would step out wiping their greasy hands on a rag asking, "What can I get for you today?"
I love it.
It feels like that. So I hope you find a picture of it.
I'll look for it, yeah.
The school bus was removed, which makes me sad. They should have turned that into a thing. But imagine seeing that happen, though. Imagine like you're sitting outside and all of a sudden the bus rolls through town because it's being removed.
Yeah. Especially all of those people that during Satanic Panic, there was a lot of, teens out experimenting with things. So they probably saw things that they didn't, of course, during those experiments. And then to see that later rolling out of town, that would be wild.
It's kind of like driving through Huntington and seeing the pink elephant.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. The Boston Community Church is still standing in all of its Gothic glory. There is also still the Boston Cemetery, or Boston Mills Cemetery, that is still there. So anyway, I hope you liked my little
That was really interesting.
little story. It wasn't like really supernatural or anything like that.
That place seems pretty interesting, and I'm with you on the empty building things. I would love to go explore like abandoned places and stuff like that, but the silence of it just, it's unnerving to me.
Yes, and the energy of it.
Yeah, it just,
Sometimes it.
yeah, it's not cool. I don't like it.
And there is supposed to be a cult in Ohio.
Yes.
Did you watch The Devil in Ohio? It talks about all that.
I have not seen that.
Add that to your list of things to watch because it's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I am going to tell you another story. So, this is going to be the story of Half Hanged Mary. This was in 1684, 8 years before Salem. A woman named Mary Webster of Hadley, Massachusetts, was accused of witchcraft. Her neighbors were so convinced of her guilt that they dragged her out of the house, hanged her from a tree, and then buried her in the snow overnight to ensure that she was dead. Amazingly, when they came to check on the body the next morning, she was still alive. She lived another 11 years and became a local legend known as Half Hanged Mary.
Bambi!
No. Technically, the shortest trials were those that never happened. In 1654, a woman named Catherine Grady was executed on a ship bound for Virginia during a massive storm, and the sailors became convinced that she was responsible for the bad weather. They held a, quote, trial on the spot, found her guilty, and hanged her from the mast before they even had reached land. The longest legal saga was James Wakely. While most trials were over in a few days or weeks, James Wakely of Connecticut holds the record for the most persistent legal battle. Between 1640 and 1660, he was involved in 37 different court cases. He was accused of witchcraft, sued others for slander, and fled the colony twice to avoid execution. His legal drama spanned 2 decades before he finally vanished from the records. So the youngest witch in a dungeon, the youngest person ever arrested was, of course, Dorothy Good, who we've spoke on several times. She was only 4 years old. She was kept in dungeon-like prison conditions for 9 months alongside her mother, Sarah Good. The jailers even had to make custom tiny iron shackles for her. The trauma was so severe that Dorothy reportedly never mentally recovered and lived the rest of her life in a state of psychological derangement.
That's awful.
Yeah, so we kind of wondered what happened with her. Yeah, so she was never the same again, which is horrifying. The trial for invisible stabbing in the Salem records. Many accusations weren't for spells in the movie sense, but for spectral stabbing. Victims would scream in court that the, quote, specter or spirit of the accused was stabbing them with pins.
Sounds like whenever the Jedi do a force choke.
It does. To the rest of the room, the girls looked like they were screaming at thin air, but the judges allowed this as spectral evidence. If a girl pulled a pin out of her own arm, it was considered a physical exhibit of a ghost weapon.
Okay, wait a minute. I sort of remember something about pulling pins and needles out of...
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The SAT-style logic of witch bottles. Archaeologists in the U.S., especially in Maryland and Virginia, have found witch bottles buried under the doorsteps of old colonial homes. People believed that if you were being cursed, you could trap the witch's energy in the bottle.
Magic, witchcraft.
Correct.
And not be attacked by a witch.
They did a lot of magic to get rid of magic. Just saying.
They buried wards at their door, huh?
They did. They sure did.
It's the damnedest thing.
Yeah. So how they did this was they would fill a glass bottle with their own urine and sharp objects like bent pins or nails. So the urine, in theory, lured the witch's spirit into the bottle, and the pins would prick their spirit, forcing them to break the curse.
That is literal witchcraft.
And literal, much like the witch cake that they were feeding to dogs to trace a witch. What is it with them and urine? Y'all doing stuff way wilder than any of us ever were. Just
only thing anybody needs to do with pee is to cure their own jellyfish sting.
The 1878 Salem witchcraft trial, which was the last one, almost 200 years after the famous trials, Salem saw one last case, Lucretia Brown, who I told you about earlier. A follower of Christian Science sued Daniel Spofford for mental malpractice. She claimed he was using his mind to cause her physical pain through mesmeric or hypnotic powers. This is technically the last time the U.S. court heard a case involving the use of supernatural mental powers to cause harm. Now we are going to compare some of the Salem and Hartford trials, so you kind of get an idea of how different they really were. The Salem Panic was 1692. Young girls having fits. There were 19 hangings and 1 pressing. In the Hartford Panic in 1662, an 8-year-old girl's deathbed cry was like the biggest happening that they had. 4 or 5 executions versus 20. And my last random fact of the series is the governor's wife was eventually accused and confessed just to get the trial over with. In 1692, the governor of Massachusetts, Sir William Phips, found the hysteria reaching his own doorstep when his wife, Lady Mary Phips, had cried out and was accused as a witch. As the accusations in Salem spiraled out of control and began targeting prominent figures, the afflicted girls, as usual, eventually named Lady Mary Phips, and while the specific details of the girl's, quote, fits regarding her are less documented than others, her name was officially brought into the records during a time when the circle of accusers was expanding to include the social and political elite of Boston. The accusations against his wife was a major turning point for Governor Phips, of course. It significantly influenced the decision to dismantle the legal machinery of the trials, which means banning spectral evidence. In October 1692, shortly after his wife was named, Phips ordered that spectral evidence, or testimony that a person's spirit or specter had attacked someone, would no longer be enough to convict suspects, of course. He dissolved the court of Oyer and Terminer, the special court he had originally created to handle the witchcraft cases, and replaced it with a court that followed stricter evidentiary rules. By May 1693, Phips issued a general pardon for all of those still in prison on witchcraft charges and released the remaining prisoners. Because of the governor's intervention, Lady Mary Phips was never brought to trial or executed. Her accusation is often cited by historians as the final straw that forced the government to admit that trials had become a disaster and bring them to a permanent end. And that is it for me, folks. So what do you think, Amy?
I think that I'm really glad that that happened and that dude was like, not my wife.
Right. Me too. Because, that quite literally ended the whole thing. Again, we have questions like the ships and what if the captain's wife or daughter were accused and what would happen. I really wish that had happened far sooner than it did, but at least that one had some sense and was like, no, we're done with this. So, it took, of course, a political figure getting accused, his wife getting accused in order for us to move on. Yeah. So there we go.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a lot of info. So now that we've wrapped that up, you've got a couple
of my Debbie Downer portion
things. So I'm going to let you get to it.
So I have 2 missing moments this time because they are so very short. I was not able to find any information on these other than what is on their missing posters. I don't know what either of them were last seen wearing. That drives me crazy. I do want to say that there are some databases that need updated. I went through several missing persons pages, got the info wrote down, and then would find a post way after the fact that said they had been found or located. I am glad to say that the ones that happened with were located alive and safe. I feel like a lot of times I don't find information because they're considered a runaway. And again, a runaway is still a missing person. All that to say is if I report on someone who has been located, please let us know, and know that I checked a lot of places before I typed up info for the episode. And I am trying to focus on more current cases, though I love to dive into the mystery of those old cases every once in a while, and I may get back to one of those again soon. So our first one, I believe this is pronounced Ataysheon Smith, Ataysheon Smith. He has been missing since June 3rd, 2025 from Charleston, West Virginia. He is 16 now, and I believe he was 15 when he went missing. He's a male with dark hair that appears to have been bleached. If you have information regarding Ataysheon, please contact the Charleston Police Department at 304-348-6400, 911, or 1-800-THE-LOST, and that is 1-800-843-5678. And then my other one is Alysia Fonner, Alysia Fonner, Fonner. She's been missing since March 25th, 2025 from Parkersburg, West Virginia. Her poster states that she may still be in that local area. She was 17 at the time she went missing and is now 18. White female, brown hair, brown eyes. And of course, if you have information on her, contact the Parkersburg Police Department, 304-424-8444, 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, which is 1-800-843-5678. And that is all I have for those two. And I'm sorry I don't have any other information. Maybe we'll have pictures of their missing posters in our show notes.
Yes, I found them already. So we are good there. So make sure if you guys could go to our Facebook and look at our show notes, make sure and grab those if you can and share them out because that's important, especially with these more recent ones. We're more looking for a person at that point with the more recent ones than we were. Obviously the 1920s ones, and we're not looking for a specific person. So
maybe somebody in your family heard a story. Right. And you might have information.
Yeah, you never know. I
really don't.
Old cases, new cases, anything that you can think of that might connect to these, or you may think that you've seen these people, or whatever the case may be, it's very, very, very important that you actually reach out to somebody and let them know, even if it turns out not to be.
Right.
I can guarantee you that most of those officials would rather hear it and look into it and not be, or whatever, than to not hear it at all. So
I was really sorry to hear about, and forgive me, I have forgotten his name, the man who left in the red Ford truck.
Yes, and we'll speak on that too, because that's horrifying.
His dog's name was Zoe.
Christopher Palmer was the man who was missing with his German Shepherd in North Carolina. And if you have not heard, the search has been called off for him. His family recently found out that he had a terminal illness, and they believe that he chose to end his life in his own way, which is incredibly sad. And now it's kind of being said that the dog, I guess, also had some issues.
Yeah, they found where they thought he had buried her.
Yeah, but with respect to the family, they've called off, of course, the search, and then they've, and I know it's hard for so many people to leave that alone, but
yes,
out of respect for both him and his family, I'm going to leave it alone. But they do think that he went to the ocean and
went the way he wanted.
Right, which I can't bash him for that, really. You know what I mean?
No.
I hate it, but, I can't say that I wouldn't rather make that decision than, especially if it was just him and his dog the whole time and she had issues. And
yeah. And he thought about his dog. He didn't just leave his dog behind.
It obviously took some thought, and he thought about it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like he literally just disappeared. So that says something. But the family asked for, everything to stop and for people to just kind of let them process this And that's what everyone should do. And as with any of our missing people cases, if you know something, see something, let somebody know. And if you are one of the people that are missing and you're missing on purpose, same for you. Please let somebody know something so that everyone's not wasting their time, energy, and feeling horrible because you're missing.
Right.
All right. Debbie Downer time is done.
Debbie Downer time is done.
All right. Well, is that it for us for this one?
I think that's it for us.
All right. So I guess that closes this chapter for now. And I will reopen the Witchy Registry after Valentine's Day and begin in Switzerland with the Valise trials that started in 1428. So that's going to be the very beginning of the systematic witch trials. So tune in for those. And in the meantime, if you have any macabre musings or suggestions you would like to throw our way, you can catch us on Facebook or shoot us an email at Macabre.Musings.Podcast@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us, and may your days be warm, kind, and full of magic.
Pull up a chair next time as we dive into more dark, creepy lore and maybe tumble down a rabbit hole or two. Until then, keep your lanterns low and your curiosities high.
And we will see y'all later.